Hyun-woo Kim, pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship. Outside, the Galactic Survival Academy grew larger with each passing second. The massive space station looked like a metal city floating in the darkness of space. Lights blinked across its surface like stars. He had never seen anything so big before. "First time seeing the Academy?" asked Jimin Park, the woman sitting next to him. She was older than Hyun-woo, maybe 30 years old. Her short black hair was cut in a military style. She wore the same gray uniform as all the other humans on the ship. "Yes," Hyun-woo said. "It's huge." "Wait until you see the inside," said Tae-ho Lee from across the narrow aisle. He was a tall man with rough hands. His face was dark from years of working outside. "I heard it has forests and lakes and even mountains inside it." So Young Choi looked up from her reading tablet. She was the youngest of their group, maybe 25 years old. Her large eyes were bright with curiosity. "The station has 12 different climate zones. Each one matches the home world of different alien species. We will train in all of them." The transport ship shook slightly as it connected to the docking port. A voice spoke over the speakers in a language none of them understood. Then it repeated in English. "All new cadets report to Arrival Bay 7. Please bring only your assigned gear." Hyun-woo picked up his small bag. It contained 2 uniforms, basic toiletries, and a few personal items. That was all they were allowed to bring. No tools, no weapons, no technology beyond the most basic items. The Academy's rules were very clear about that. They walked through the docking tube with 40 other beings. Most of them were not human. Hyun-woo saw creatures with blue skin and 4 arms. Others had scales instead of skin. Some looked like walking rocks. A few were so strange he could not figure out what they were supposed to be. The arrival bay was enormous. The ceiling was so high, Hyun-woo could barely see it. Hundreds of new cadets filled the space. The noise was incredible. Different species made different sounds when they talked. Some clicked, others buzzed, and a few made sounds like singing. "Welcome to the Galactic Survival Academy," a voice boomed across the bay. The sound came from everywhere at once. "I am Instructor Veltar. You will follow me to the orientation chamber." Hyun-woo looked around but could not see who was speaking. Then the crowd began to move. They walked down a wide corridor lined with windows. Through the glass, Hyun-woo could see one of the climate zones Tae-ho had mentioned. It looked like a jungle with purple trees and strange flying creatures. The orientation chamber was another huge room. This one had rows of seats that could fit many different body types. The humans sat together near the back. In front of them sat a group of beings that looked like giant insects. To their left were creatures that seemed to be made of living crystal. A figure appeared on the stage at the front of the room. It was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished stone. Its face had no nose, just 2 holes where a nose should be. Its eyes were large and completely black. "I am Instructor Veltar," the figure said. Its voice was cold and sharp. "You are here because your species believes you deserve to join the galactic community. This academy will test that belief." The instructor walked back and forth across the stage. Its movements were stiff and mechanical. For the next 6 months, you will face challenges designed to test your ability to survive. You will use only your natural abilities. No tools, no technology, only what your species evolved to possess. Veltar stopped and looked directly at the human section. Some species have great strength, others have natural armor. Some can see in complete darkness or survive without food for months. These are real evolutionary advantages. The instructor's black eyes seemed to focus on Hyun-woo personally. Other species appear to have no special abilities at all. They are weak, slow, and poorly adapted to harsh conditions. These species rarely succeed at the academy. A murmur went through the other cadets. Many of them turned to look at the humans. Hyun-woo felt his cheeks grow hot. He knew Veltar was talking about them. The academy has 12 different environments, Veltar continued. Desert worlds where the temperature reaches 200 degrees, ice worlds where nothing grows, ocean worlds with creatures that hunt in the deepest waters, toxic worlds where the air itself can kill you. The instructor gestured toward the ceiling. Images appeared in the air above them. Hyun-woo saw endless sand dunes under a burning red sun. He saw frozen mountains covered in sharp ice. He saw dark oceans filled with things that had too many teeth. You will spend time in each environment, Veltar said. You will find food. You will build shelter. You will protect yourself from the creatures that live there. Many of you will fail. This is expected and acceptable. The images changed to show different alien species in action. A creature with rock-like skin walked through lava without being hurt. Another being with 6 legs ran across ice faster than a car. A third alien seemed to disappear and reappear at will. Each species will use their natural gifts, Veltar explained. The Korthak use their stone skin for protection. The Voss can become invisible to avoid danger. The Bruthen are strong enough to fight any predator. The instructor looked at the humans again. This time there was something like amusement in its black eyes. What natural gifts will you use, I wonder? Hyun-woo felt anger growing in his chest. He looked at his fellow humans. Jimin's jaw was tight with controlled rage. Taeho's hands were clenched into fists. So-young was taking notes, but her pen was pressed so hard against the paper it was tearing holes. Your first challenge begins tomorrow, Veltar announced. You will be taken to Survival Zone Alpha. It is a moon with an acidic atmosphere and dangerous wildlife. You will have 72 hours to prove you can survive. The instructor raised one long, thin arm. Remember the rules. No manufactured tools. No technology. Use only what nature provides and what your species naturally possesses. Those who fail will be sent home immediately. The lights dimmed and different colored beams appeared throughout the chamber. Each beam led to a different exit. Follow the blue light to your dormitory assignments. Follow the green light to the equipment bay for your survival gear. Follow the red light to the medical station for your final health check. As the cadets began to leave, Veltar called out one more time. To the human cadets specifically, I recommend you enjoy your time on the station tonight. Based on survival statistics, most of you will not be here tomorrow evening. The other aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. His three companions stood with him. They did not speak as they followed the blue light toward their dormitories, but Hyunwoo could see the determination in their faces. They had come to this academy to prove that humans deserved a place among the stars. Instructor Veltar clearly thought they would fail. So did most of the other species here. Hyunwoo smiled grimly as they walked through the corridor. Let them underestimate humans. Let them think humans were weak and helpless. Tomorrow, when they were dropped onto that hostile moon, he would show them what humans could do with nothing but rocks and sticks. After all, humans had been surviving with rocks and sticks for thousands of years. The aliens were about to learn what that meant. The transport ship shook violently as it entered the atmosphere of the moon they called Survival Zone Alpha. Through the small windows, Hyunwoo could see dark clouds swirling around them. Lightning flashed constantly, turning the clouds purple and green. "Prepare for drop," announced the ship's computer. "All cadets report to your assigned pods." Hyunwoo strapped himself into Pod 12. Jimin was in Pod 13, right next to him. Through the thin wall between them, he could hear her checking her equipment. Each cadet received the same basic gear: a water container, a basic first aid kit, and a beacon for emergencies. That was all. "Remember," came Instructor Veltar's voice over the communication system, "you have 72 hours to establish a viable survival situation. Use only your natural abilities and what the environment provides. No manufactured tools beyond your emergency beacon." The pod door sealed with a hiss. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop as the pod was launched from the ship. Through his small window, he watched the other pods falling like rain toward the moon's surface. Each pod carried a different species to a different location on the moon. The landing was rough. The pod hit the ground hard enough to rattle Hyunwoo's teeth. When it stopped bouncing, he pressed the release button. The door opened with a loud crack. The smell hit him first. The air was thick and sharp, like breathing vinegar. His eyes began to water immediately. Above him, dark clouds rumbled with constant thunder. As he watched, drops of rain began to fall. Where the rain hit the ground, it sizzled and steamed. Acid rain. Veltar had mentioned this moon had an acidic atmosphere, but experiencing it was different from hearing about it. Each raindrop that hit his skin burned like a tiny fire. His uniform began to smoke where the rain touched it. Hyunwoo grabbed his gear and looked for shelter. The landscape around him was rocky and barren. Strange, twisted plants grew between the rocks, but they looked dangerous. Some of them moved when he got close, reaching toward him with thorn-covered branches. In the distance, he could see other pods. Some had already opened. He watched a tall alien with blue skin step out of one pod. The creature had thick, rocky plates covering its body like armor. The acid rain bounced off its natural protection without causing any damage. From another pod came a being that looked like it was made of living metal. The rain hit its surface and simply rolled off. The creature began walking across the harsh terrain as if the acidic environment was nothing more than a gentle shower. A third alien emerged from a pod closer to Hyunwoo's position. This one was huge and covered in thick fur. It had 4 arms and legs like tree trunks. When the acid rain hit its fur, the creature just shook itself like a wet dog. The acid seemed to have no effect at all. Hyunwoo felt the rain getting heavier. His skin was burning in a dozen places where drops had hit him. His uniform was starting to dissolve in spots. He needed shelter, and he needed it now. He ran toward a cluster of large rocks. Between 2 of the biggest stones, he found a narrow gap just wide enough for his body. He squeezed inside just as the rain turned from drops into a steady downpour. Safe from the immediate danger, Hyunwoo took stock of his situation. The rocky shelter kept most of the rain off him, but water was still dripping through cracks above. Each drop that hit him continued to burn. His uniform was becoming more damaged by the minute. Outside his shelter, he could see the other aliens moving around freely. Their natural advantages protected them from the hostile environment. The blue-skinned creature with the rocky plates was already gathering strange fruits from the dangerous plants. The metal being was walking toward what looked like a cave system. The huge, furry alien was digging in the ground with its massive claws. All of them were using their evolved abilities to deal with the challenges of this world. All of them had natural armor or resistance that humans simply did not possess. Veltar had been right about one thing. Humans had no obvious biological advantages, but that did not mean they had no advantages at all. Hyunwoo looked around his small shelter. The rocks that protected him were different colors and hardness. Some were smooth and black, others were rough and gray. A few were reddish-brown with sharp edges. He reached out and picked up one of the sharp-edged rocks. It fit well in his hand, with one pointed end and a broader base for gripping. He tapped it against the wall of his shelter. It made a clear, ringing sound. Good quality stone. Hard enough to hold an edge, but not so hard it could not be shaped. While the acid rain poured down outside, Hyunwoo began working with his rock. He used another stone as a hammer, carefully chipping away small pieces from the first rock's edge. Each strike had to be precise. Too hard and the rock would shatter. Too soft and nothing would happen. This was knowledge that went back to the beginning of human civilization. Before metal, before agriculture, before cities, humans had survived by making tools from stone. Every human child learned about this in school, but few ever tried it themselves. Hyunwoo had tried it. As a boy, he had been fascinated by archaeology. He had spent hours in the woods behind his house, practicing the ancient art of knapping. His parents thought it was just a hobby. Now it might save his life. After an hour of careful work, he had shaped the rock into a crude but functional cutting tool. The edge was sharp enough to cut through plant fibers. The base was smooth enough to grip comfortably. It was not pretty, but it would work. The rain was starting to slow down. Through the gaps in his shelter, Hyunwoo could see the other aliens. Had all found or built more permanent shelters. The blue-skinned creature had somehow hollowed out a space in the solid rock using its armored claws. The metal being had disappeared entirely, probably into the cave system. The furry alien had dug a deep hole and covered it with flat stones. All of them were safe and dry. All of them had used their natural biological advantages to survive the first challenge. Hyunwoo looked at his makeshift stone tool. To most people, it would look like nothing more than a shaped rock, but to someone who understood its potential, it was the beginning of everything. He squeezed out of his rocky shelter and looked around. The acid rain had stopped, but the air was still thick and harsh. His skin continued to burn where the acidic moisture touched it. His uniform was now full of holes, but he was alive, and he had something the other aliens did not have. They had natural armor and strength and resistance to acid. He had something better. He had the ability to make any object into a tool. The sharp rock in his hand was just the beginning. With it, he could cut plants to make rope. He could shape wood into handles and supports. He could build shelters that were not just holes in the ground or caves in the rock. Around him, the hostile moon continued to present its challenges. Dangerous plants moved in the wind. Strange sounds came from the distance, probably predators looking for food. The air burned his lungs with every breath, but Hyunwoo smiled as he held his stone tool. The other species had evolved natural advantages over millions of years. Humans had evolved something different, the ability to give themselves any advantage they needed. The aliens thought humans were weak and poorly adapted. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Humans had been the weakest species on Earth too, once upon a time, but they had become the dominant species anyway. Not because they were stronger or faster or better armored than other animals, but because they could turn rocks into tools, and tools into civilization. Hyunwoo began walking across the barren landscape, looking for materials to work with. Behind him, other aliens continued to rely on what nature had given them. Ahead of him lay 72 hours to show them what humans could build when nature gave them nothing but rocks and sticks. 6 hours had passed since the acid rain stopped. Hyunwoo knelt beside a cluster of fibrous plants, using his stone tool to cut through their tough stems. The sharp edge he had created worked better than he had expected. Each cut was clean and precise. Behind him, a pile of plant material grew steadily. He had been collecting different types of vegetation for the past 2 hours. Some plants had long, string-like fibers that could be woven into rope. Others had broad leaves that might provide waterproof covering. A few had hollow stems that could channel water. "What are you doing?" Hyunwoo looked up. Jimin Park stood a few meters away, watching him work. Her uniform was as damaged as his, full of holes from the acid rain. But she looked alert and focused, not defeated. "Making tools," Hyunwoo said simply. He held up his shaped stone. "This is just the beginning." Jimin moved closer and examined his work. Her eyes were bright with interest. "You shaped that yourself?" "My grandfather taught me when I was young," Hyunwoo explained. "He learned it from books about ancient humans. He said modern people had forgotten how to survive with just their hands." Smart grandfather. Jimin picked up one of the plant. Stems Hyunwoo had cut. She tested its flexibility by bending it back and forth. "These fibers are strong, good for binding things together." "Exactly." Hyunwoo continued cutting. "Help me gather more. We need a lot of material." As they worked together, Tae-Ho Lee appeared from behind a row of rocks. He carried an armload of different stones and what looked like pieces of dead wood. His face was grim, but determined. "Found some interesting minerals over there," Tae-Ho said, dropping his collection on the ground. "This gray stone is very hard. This brown one is softer but holds its shape well, and this wood is dry enough to burn." "Burn?" Jimin asked. "How? Do we make fire without matches or lighters?" Tae-Ho smiled for the first time since they had landed on the moon. "Same way humans did it for thousands of years. Friction and patience." So young Choi joined them as the afternoon wore on. She had been exploring the area, mapping the locations of water sources, and studying the native wildlife. Her notebook was full of observations and sketches. "There's a small stream about half a kilometer north," she reported. "The water looks clean, but I want to test it before we drink it. I also found tracks from at least 3 different predator species. We need to be very careful after dark." The 4 humans worked together as the day progressed. They had not planned to meet up, but they had naturally found each other. Now they functioned as a team, each person contributing their particular skills. Hyunwoo focused on tool making. He created several more cutting implements, each one designed for a specific purpose. He made a broad, flat blade for scraping bark from trees. He shaped a narrow, pointed tool for making holes in wood and leather. He even managed to create a simple hammer by lashing a heavy stone to a wooden handle with plant fibers. Jimin applied her engineering knowledge to structural problems. She designed a framework for their shelter using the principles she had learned in the military. Her plan called for a raised floor to keep them dry, sloped walls to shed rain, and multiple exit routes in case of emergency. Tae-Ho worked on fire and water. He gathered different types of tinder and kindling, arranging them carefully for when they would need fire. He also began construction of a simple water filter using layers of sand, gravel, and cloth torn from his damaged uniform. So Young served as their intelligence gatherer. She continued to study the local ecosystem, learning which plants might be edible and which animals posed the greatest threats. She also kept watch for the activities of other alien cadets. "The blue-skinned ones are building something large about 2 kilometers east," she reported during one of her scouting trips. "It looks like they're carving directly into a cliff face using their natural claws. The metal beings have disappeared, underground completely. I think they found a cave system." As evening approached, their shelter began to take shape. It was not pretty, but it was functional. The frame was made of the strongest wood they could find, lashed together with woven plant fibers. The walls were covered with overlapping layers of broad leaves, sealed with mud and plant sap to make them waterproof. The most impressive feature was the roof. Jimin had designed it with a steep slope that would direct rainwater into collection channels. The water would flow to containers they had woven from plant fibers and sealed with tree resin. Even if acid rain fell again, they would be protected and able to collect clean water for drinking. "This is remarkable," said a new voice. The 4 humans turned to see an alien approaching their camp. It was unlike any of the species they had seen before. The creature was tall and thin, with 6 arms and skin that looked like polished wood. Its face had large, multifaceted eyes like an insect. "I am Zekthara," the alien said, in accented but clear English. "I am an observer from the Academy's evaluation board. I have been watching your progress with great interest." Hyun-woo straightened up, still holding his stone hammer. "Are we breaking any rules?" "That is exactly what I am trying to determine," Zekthara said. Her voice had a musical quality, like wind chimes. "The rules state that cadets may use only their natural abilities and what the environment provides. No manufactured tools are permitted." She gestured toward their shelter and the collection of implements Hyun-woo had created. "You are using materials provided by the environment, but you are modifying them in ways that other species do not. The question is whether this modification constitutes tool manufacture." "We're not manufacturing anything," Jimin said firmly. "We're just using our natural abilities to adapt environmental resources." "And what natural ability is that?" Zekthara asked. "Problem solving," Taeho said. "Pattern recognition. The ability to see potential in raw materials." "Manual dexterity," added So Young. "The ability to manipulate objects with precision." Hyun-woo held up his stone hammer. "Every species has natural abilities. Some have claws, some have armor, some have great strength. Humans have hands that can grip and shape. We have minds that can imagine what does not exist and then create it." Zekthara moved closer to examine their shelter. She studied the lashed joints, the waterproof ceiling, the integrated water collection system. Her large eyes reflected the last light of the setting sun. "Other species use their gifts in predictable ways," she said finally. "The Korthak used their stone skin for defense. The Bruthen used their strength to overpower threats. The Voss use their phase shifting to avoid danger entirely. But you transform your environment to suit your needs. Is that against the rules?" Hyun-woo asked. "I honestly do not know," Zekthara admitted. "In 300 years of Academy operation, no species has ever approached survival this way. We have no protocols for evaluating environmental transformation versus simple environmental adaptation." She began to walk away, then paused. "I will say this. When Instructor Veltar sees what you have accomplished in less than 24 hours, there will be significant discussion among the faculty." After the observer left, the 4 humans finished their preparations for the night. Taeho got a fire started using friction between 2 pieces of dry wood. The flame was small at first, but it grew steadily as he fed it carefully selected tinder. As darkness fell around them, they sat in their shelter around the warm fire. Outside, they could hear the sounds of nocturnal predators beginning their hunt. Strange calls echoed across the rocky landscape. In the distance, something large crashed through the undergrowth. But inside their shelter, the humans were warm and dry. Their water containers were full. Their fire provided both light and protection. Their tools were arranged within easy reach. "Think we'll pass the first challenge?" Jimin asked. Hyun-woo looked around at what they had built. Then he looked at the stone hammer in his hands. 24 hours ago, it had been just a rock lying on the ground. Now it was a tool that could build, repair, or defend. "We're not just passing," he said. "We're showing them something they've never seen before. We're showing them what humans can do when all we have is rocks and sticks." Outside their shelter, the hostile moon continued its attempts to kill them. Inside, 4 humans settled down for a good night's sleep, protected by nothing more than shaped stone and woven plants. But sometimes, that was all humans needed. The second day on the hostile moon dawned gray and threatening. Dark clouds gathered overhead, promising another round of acid rain. But inside their shelter, the 4 humans were comfortable and planning improvements. The roof held perfectly, G-Men reported, checking the joints and seals they had made the day before. No leaks anywhere. The water collection system worked too. We gathered almost 10 liters during the night from the condensation alone. Hyunwoo was already working on new tools. He had discovered that different types of stone had different properties. The red stones held sharp edges well, but were brittle. The gray stones were harder to shape, but more durable. By combining materials, he could create specialized implements for specific tasks. "I want to expand the shelter," he said, holding up a new cutting tool he had made. "Add more space for storage and work areas. Maybe a second exit in case we need to leave quickly." "Good idea," Taeho agreed. "I found some clay deposits near the stream. If we mix it with grass fibers, we can make bricks that will be much stronger than just mud and sticks." So Young looked up from her notebook. "We should also think about food production. I found several plant species that might be edible. If we clear a small area and plant some seeds, we could have fresh food in a few days." As they discussed their plans, a commotion outside caught their attention. Through the gaps in their shelter walls, they could see a group of alien cadets approaching. There were 5 of them, all from species the humans had not encountered before. The leader was a massive creature covered in thick, armor-like scales. Behind it came 2 beings that looked like walking crystals, their bodies transparent and glittering in the pale sunlight. The other 2 were smaller, covered in fur, with large ears and nervous, darting eyes. "Greetings," called the scaled leader, in heavily accented English. "I am War Captain Thok of the Grimmick Empire. These are my allies." The word allies sounded like it had been chosen carefully. Hyunwoo noticed that the smaller, furry aliens stayed well back from Thok, as if they were afraid of him. "Hello," Hyunwoo replied, stepping out of the shelter. The other humans followed him, but he noticed they all kept their tools within reach. "I'm Hyunwoo. These are my teammates." Thok's small eyes studied their shelter with obvious interest. "We observed your construction activities yesterday. Very unusual approach to survival." "It works for us," G-Men said simply. "Indeed." Thok moved closer to examine the shelter's walls. "My species uses natural armor for protection. The Vex Han." He gestured to the crystal beings. "Absorb energy from their environment. The Quillen," he indicated the furry aliens, "have enhanced speed and agility." He paused and looked directly at Hyunwoo. "But none of us can build like this. We are curious about your methods." One of the crystal beings stepped forward. Its voice sounded like musical chimes when it spoke. "The approaching storm will be severe. Our natural resistances may not be sufficient. We request Cooperation. Hyunwoo exchanged glances with his teammates. They had not expected other species to ask for help. Most of the aliens they had encountered so far seemed to view survival as an individual competition. What kind of cooperation? So Young asked. Shelter sharing? Thok said bluntly. Our current shelters are inadequate. Yours appears to be superior. Taeho frowned. There's not enough room for all of us inside. Then we help you make it bigger, one of the Quillins said quickly. Its voice was high and fast, like a nervous bird. We work together, survive together. Hyunwoo considered the request. These aliens had natural advantages that could be useful. Thok's incredible strength could help move heavy materials. The crystal beings might be able to work with minerals in ways humans could not. The Quillin were fast and could serve as scouts. What can you contribute? He asked. Strength, Thok said, demonstrating by lifting a boulder that would have taken all 4 humans working together to move. Mineral processing, chimed one of the crystal beings, placing its hand on a rock. The stone began to glow and slowly changed. Shape. Speed and scouting, added a Quillin, moving so fast it seemed to blur. All right, Hyunwoo decided. But we do this our way. You follow our construction plans and building methods. Agreed, Thok said immediately. What followed was the most intensive construction project any of them had ever undertaken. The humans designed and supervised while the aliens provided specialized labor. Hyunwoo created new tools specifically for directing the work. Jimin drew up expanded plans for a much larger shelter complex. Taeho organized material gathering and processing. So Young coordinated the different species and their various abilities. Thok's strength proved invaluable for moving the large stones that would form the shelter's foundation. The Grimmack warrior could lift rocks that would have been impossible for humans to handle. But he needed constant direction on where to place them and how to fit them together. The crystal beings, who called themselves Vex Han, could reshape stone with their touch. But they did not understand structural engineering. They had to be shown exactly how to modify each stone to fit properly with its neighbors. The Quillin were incredible scouts and gatherers. They could cover vast distances quickly and locate the best materials. But they had no experience with construction and needed detailed instructions for every task. As the day progressed, their expanded shelter grew beyond anything any of them had imagined possible. The foundation was solid stone, shaped and fitted with precision. The walls were a combination of wood frame and stone blocks, sealed with clay mortar. The roof was multi-layered, designed to shed even the most severe acid rain. But the most impressive features were the additions the humans designed as they worked. Jimin created a ventilation system that would keep fresh air circulating even during storms. Taeho built multiple water collection and filtration systems. So Young designed storage areas for food and equipment. Hyunwoo focused on what he was best at: tools. He created a complete workshop area inside the shelter, with specialized implements for every task they might need to perform. Stone knives for cutting, wooden hammers for building, clay containers for storage, rope and cordage for binding. By evening, their shelter had become something approaching a small fortress. It was large enough to house all 9 beings comfortably. It was strong enough to withstand severe weather. It was equipped with everything they would need for long-term survival. As they gathered around the fire that night, sharing a meal of cooked roots and filtered water, the differences between the species seemed less important than their shared accomplishment. "I have never seen anything like this," Thok admitted. "My people build by instinct, using our natural strength to create simple shelters. This is architecture." "Our species shapes minerals," said one of the Vexhan. "But we shape them one at a time, without plan or purpose. You create systems. Everything works together. We are fast," added Aquilin. "But speed means nothing without direction. You showed us how to use our abilities effectively." Hyunwoo looked around at their expanded group. Each species had contributed according to their abilities, but the humans had provided something none of the others possessed: the knowledge of how to combine individual abilities into collective achievement. "This is what humans do," he said. "We take whatever we have available and make it into something better. We see possibilities that don't exist yet and figure out how to make them."
Real.
Outside their fortress shelter, the second night on the hostile moon brought worse weather than the first. Acid rain poured down in torrents. Lightning cracked across the sky. Strange creatures howled in the darkness, but inside, 9 beings from 5 different species sat warm and dry around a crackling fire. They had enough food, clean water, comfortable sleeping areas, and protection from any threat the moon could offer. And in the workshop area, Hyunwoo was already designing tools for tomorrow's challenges, because he knew this was just the beginning. The hostile moon was only the first test. The aliens who had joined them were beginning to understand something that would change their view of humanity forever. Humans might not have claws or armor or natural energy abilities, but they had something potentially more valuable: the ability to look at any environment and figure out how to not just survive in it, but master it. The sharp rock that had started, as Hyunwoo's first tool, now sat in a place of honor in their workshop. Next to it lay dozens of other implements, each one designed for a specific purpose, each one representing human ingenuity applied to the challenges of survival. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new problems to solve. But tonight, as acid rain poured down on their impervious shelter, the humans and their alien allies rested comfortably. Outside, nature tried to kill them. Inside, they had built something stronger than nature itself: cooperation, guided by human innovation. By the morning of the 3rd day, their small settlement had grown beyond a simple shelter. It had become something that resembled the beginning of civilization. Hyunwoo stood at the entrance to their compound, watching the sun rise through the protective barrier they had built during the night. The acid rain had stopped, but the air still carried a sharp chemical smell. In the distance, he could see other alien cadets moving around their individual shelters. "The water filtration system is working perfectly," Taeho reported, emerging from the workshop area with a container of clear, clean water. "We're producing more than we can use. I've started filling storage containers." "Good," Hyunwoo nodded. So Young, how are the plants doing? So Young Choi looked up from the small garden area they had established behind the main shelter. In just 2 days, she had managed to cultivate several species of native plants. Some provided food, others had medicinal properties, and a few were useful for making tools and materials. Better than expected, she said. The soil here is actually quite rich once you get below the acidic surface layer. I've got 3 different food plants growing, and the fiber plants should be ready for harvesting in another day or 2. Jimin emerged from inside the shelter carrying a set of detailed drawings. I've finished the plans for the water mill. If we can redirect part of that stream, we can have mechanical power for grinding grain and processing materials. Hyunwoo studied the drawings. The design was clever, using principles of leverage and rotation that would multiply the force of flowing water. It was exactly the kind of innovation that separated humans from other species. How long to build it? He asked. With help from our friends, maybe 6 hours, Jimin estimated. Their friends were the 5 aliens who had joined them the previous day. The arrangement had worked out well for everyone involved. The humans provided leadership, planning, and innovation. The aliens contributed their natural abilities and specialized skills. Thok, the massive Grimac warrior, had proven especially valuable. His incredible strength allowed them to move materials that would have been impossible for humans to handle. But more importantly, he had begun to understand human methods of organization and planning. War Captain Thok reporting for duty, the scaled alien announced as he approached their group. Despite his fearsome appearance, he had adopted human military protocols with enthusiasm. We're going to build something new today, Hyunwoo explained, showing Thok the water mill plans. It will give us mechanical power. Thok studied the drawings with growing excitement. This machine will work for us even when we sleep? Exactly, Jimin confirmed. Once it's built, it will run continuously as long as water flows through it. The crystal beings, the Vexhan, arrived next. They moved with a strange gliding motion that made no sound. Their transparent bodies caught and refracted the morning light in beautiful patterns. We have processed the minerals you requested, one of them announced in its chiming voice. The metal content is higher than expected. We can create very strong components. Hyunwoo accepted the processed materials. The Vexhan could reshape stone and metal with their touch, but they needed human direction to create useful objects. Working together, they had produced components that neither species could have made alone. The 2 Quillen appeared last, moving so fast they seemed to materialize out of thin air. Their furry faces were bright with excitement. "Scouting report?" The first one chattered rapidly. "Other aliens are watching us. Many different species. They stand at distance and observe our activities." "Some seem friendly," added the second Quillen. "Others appear concerned." So Young looked up from her plants with interest. "Concerned about what?" "About us," Hyunwoo realized. "About what?" "We're building here." As if to confirm his words, a new figure appeared at the edge of their compound. It was Instructor Veltar, the crystalline being who had addressed them on their first day at the academy. The instructor's black eyes reflected the morning light as it studied their settlement. Cadets, Veltar said, its voice as cold and sharp as before. I have come to conduct a progress evaluation. The instructor walked slowly through their compound, examining every structure and system they had built. It paused at the water filtration system, studying the layers of sand, gravel, and cloth that cleaned the acidic stream water. It examined the workshop area, with its collection of specialized tools and workstations. When Veltar reached the garden area, it stopped completely. The instructor knelt down and touched one of the growing plants with a long, thin finger. You are cultivating native species, Veltar observed. For food and materials, So Young confirmed. We identified which plants were safe to eat and which ones had useful properties. Then we created optimal growing conditions. You have domesticated wild plants in less than 3 days, Veltar said slowly. Most species require generations to achieve such results. Humans learn fast, Hyunwoo said simply. Veltar stood and continued its inspection. When it reached the partially constructed watermill, the instructor examined the design for several long minutes. What is the purpose of this device? Veltar asked. Mechanical advantage, Jimin explained. The flowing water will turn the wheel, which will power other machines. We can use it to grind food, process materials, even generate electricity if we need it. You are creating technology, Veltar said. The accusation was clear in its voice. We're using environmental resources and natural forces, Hyunwoo corrected. Same as any other species. We're just using them more efficiently. Veltar turned to look at the mixed group of humans and aliens working together. And these other species? They are following your instructions? We're cooperating, Thok said firmly. Humans plan, we execute. Everyone contributes according to their abilities. This level of interspecies cooperation is unprecedented in Academy history, Veltar noted. Most cadets compete against each other for resources. Competition wastes energy, So Young pointed out. Cooperation multiplies it. The instructor completed its inspection and stood at the center of their compound. Around it, the evidence of human innovation was everywhere. Tools, structures, systems, and cultivated areas that had not existed 3 days before. Your methods are unlike anything we have encountered, Veltar said finally. You do not simply adapt to your environment, you modify it to suit your needs. Is that against the rules? Hyunwoo asked the same question he had asked the observer, Zekathera. The rules state that cadets must survive using only their natural abilities, Veltar replied. The question that concerns the faculty is, what constitutes a natural ability? The instructor gestured toward their compound. Other species have evolved biological advantages, armor, strength, energy manipulation. But you have evolved something different. You have evolved the ability to see potential in everything around. You and to organize collective effort toward common goals. Veltar paused, as if considering its next words carefully. There is significant debate among the Academy faculty about whether this represents a violation of the Survival Challenge rules or the emergence of a new category of evolutionary advantage. What's the debate? Jimin asked. Some instructors believe that tool creation constitutes artificial enhancement beyond natural abilities, Veltar explained. Others argue that your mental capabilities are as natural as any species' physical advantages. The instructor looked directly at Hyunwoo. But there is another concern that overshadows the rule interpretation, which is, you are changing this environment permanently, Veltar said. In 3 days, you have created sustainable food production, renewable resource systems, and permanent infrastructure. You have domesticated native species and altered natural water flow patterns. The instructor gestured toward the horizon, where other alien cadets could be seen in the distance. Most species survive by finding their niche within existing ecosystems. You survive by transforming ecosystems to create your niche. Hyunwoo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Are you saying we're causing environmental damage? On the contrary, Veltar replied. Your modifications appear to improve ecosystem stability and productivity. The plants you are cultivating are thriving. The water you are filtering is cleaner than the natural stream. The structures you have built provide shelter for native wildlife. The instructor paused again. But the implications for galactic civilization are significant. If humans can transform hostile environments into productive settlements in a matter of days, what might they accomplish with access to advanced technology and unlimited time? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Around their compound, the mixed group of humans and aliens continued their work. The watermill was taking shape. The garden was growing. New tools were being created in the workshop. We're just trying to pass your survival test, Hyunwoo said. I know, Veltar replied. That is what concerns us. The instructor turned and walked away, leaving the 9 beings to continue their work. But Hyunwoo could feel the weight of observation from the academy. They were no longer just being tested for survival skills. They were being evaluated as a potential threat to the established order of galactic civilization. Around him, his human teammates and alien allies worked together with growing efficiency. The emergency session of the Academy Council took place in the highest tower of Nexus Prime. Through the transparent walls of the council chamber, the stars wheeled slowly in the endless darkness of space. Inside, representatives of dozens of alien species debated the fate of 4 humans who were, at that moment, building a watermill on a distant moon. High Evaluator Quindara presided over the chaos from her position at the center of the circular chamber. The ancient energy being appeared as a shifting column of light, her thoughts visible as patterns of color that danced through her translucent form. The situation is unprecedented, announced Veltar, standing at one of the speaking podiums. The crystalline instructor's voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers. In 72 hours, the humans have fundamentally altered the test environment in ways we did not anticipate. Council member Brickstall of the Korthak Empire rose from his heavy stone chair. They are cheating. The rules clearly state no manufactured tools, yet they create implements, machines, and structures that give them unfair advantages. Are they manufactured? Challenged Counselor Yithara of the Ethereal Collective. Her ghostly form flickered in and out of visibility as she spoke. The humans use only materials found in the environment. They shape these materials using their natural abilities. How is this different from our species using natural phase shifting or the Korthak using natural stone skin? It is different because it is cumulative, Veltar interjected. Each tool they create enables the creation of more complex tools. Each structure they build supports more advanced structures. They are not simply using their abilities, they are amplifying them exponentially. High Evaluator. Quindara's form pulsed with deep blue patterns, indicating thoughtful consideration. Show us the current status of all cadets. The chambers. Central display activated, showing aerial views of the test moon's surface. Dozens of individual survival shelters dotted the landscape. Most were simple affairs, caves, burrows, or basic lean-tos that provided minimal protection from the hostile environment. But in one area, a complex of interconnected structures sprawled across nearly a hectare of land. Gardens, workshops, water. Systems and defensive walls formed a pattern that looked more like a small town than a survival camp. The humans have created what can only be described as a settlement, Veltar reported. They have recruited 5 aliens from other species to work under their direction. Together, they have achieved a level of environmental mastery that exceeds anything in Academy records. Council member Drakthul of the Bruthan clans slammed his massive fist against his armrest. This proves they are dangerous. Give humans time and resources, and they will dominate any environment. They will dominate any species. Or they will improve conditions for everyone, countered scientist Prime Zekthara. The insectoid observer's multifaceted eyes glittered as she presented her findings. I have monitored their activities continuously. The humans do not dominate their alien allies. They teach them. They share resources equally. They make collective decisions. For now, growled Drakthul. But what happens when humans have advanced technology? What happens when they have starships and energy weapons and industrial capabilities? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species present had achieved their current level of civilization over thousands or millions of years. They had evolved slowly, developing their technology in careful stages, learning to balance power with responsibility. But humans appeared to evolve their capabilities almost instantly, adapting to any challenge, turning any limitation into an advantage. If they could build a functional settlement in 3 days with nothing but rocks and sticks, what could they accomplish with access to galactic technology? There is another concern, Veltar continued. The humans are changing the behavior of other species. The aliens working with them are learning human methods. They are adopting human approaches to problem-solving and cooperation. On the display, the settlement's inhabitants could be seen working together on various projects. The massive Grimac warrior was following detailed instructions from the small human engineer. The crystal beings were reshaping materials according to precise human specifications. The fast-moving Quillen were organizing supply chains with military precision. Cultural contamination, whispered council member Zirion of the Hegemonic Alliance. The humans are not just adapting to the test. They are converting other species to their way of thinking. High Evaluator. Quindara's form shifted to deep red, patterns indicating growing concern. What recommendations does the faculty make? Immediate termination of the test, Veltar said without hesitation. Remove all cadets from the moon and return them to their respective home worlds. Humanity should be classified as too dangerous for galactic citizenship. That seems extreme, objected Zekthara. The humans have broken no rules. They have harmed no one. Their innovations benefit all species involved. Today they benefit others, Drakthul rumbled. Tomorrow, they may decide others are obstacles to their progress. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued that humanity's apparent abilities made them valuable potential allies. Others insisted that the same abilities made them existential threats to galactic stability. Finally, High Evaluator Quindara called for order. Her ancient consciousness had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. She had seen species achieve greatness and species destroy themselves. But she had never seen anything quite like the humans. There is wisdom in both positions, she announced. The humans represent either our greatest opportunity or our greatest threat, possibly both simultaneously. Her form shifted through a complex pattern of colors, each hue representing different aspects of her analysis. We will not terminate the test early, but we will modify it. If humans can master one hostile environment so quickly, let us see how they perform against multiple challenges simultaneously. What do you propose? Asked Veltar. The Crucible of Extinction, Quindara replied. The final test that was designed to be unsurvivable. We will apply it now, while the humans are still limited to primitive tools and basic resources. A murmur of concern rippled through the council chamber. The Crucible was typically reserved for the final stages of academy training, when cadets had access to advanced equipment and support systems. Applying it to cadets armed with nothing but rocks and sticks was essentially a death sentence. You want to kill them? Zekthara asked in shock. I want to test the limits of human adaptability, Quindara corrected. If they truly are as dangerous as some fear, they will find a way to survive. If they are simply clever primitives with good intentions, the Crucible will eliminate the threat they might pose. And if they do survive? Asked Veltar. High Evaluator Quindara's form pulsed with patterns that had no equivalent in any spoken language. They represented concepts too complex for simple translation. Admiration mixed with terror, hope combined with dread, the recognition of potential that could reshape the galaxy. Then we will know that humanity's place in the galactic community must be carefully considered. The council vote was close, but the decision was made. The Crucible of Extinction would be implemented immediately. All cadets would face conditions designed to push them beyond the breaking point of survival. Complete ecological collapse, extreme weather variations, resource scarcity, and social isolation. Most species were expected to retreat into pure survival mode, abandoning cooperation and rational thought in favor of basic self-preservation instincts. The test was designed to strip away civilization and reduce all participants to their most primitive behaviors. As the council members departed to their various sectors of the galaxy, One thought dominated their collective consciousness. If humans could build a settlement in 3 days with rocks and sticks, what would they do when faced with the end of the world? On the surface of the distant moon, Hyun-woo Kim was putting the finishing touches on a mechanical grain mill, completely unaware that he and his teammates were about to face their greatest challenge yet. In a few hours, their carefully constructed settlement would be subjected to environmental disasters that had destroyed entire civilizations. The Academy wanted to test the limits of human adaptability. They were about to get their answer, whether they were prepared for it or not. The warning came without explanation. Every cadet on the moon received the same message through their emergency beacons. Prepare for immediate environmental catastrophe. Survival conditions will become extreme. All previous test parameters are now void. Hyun-woo looked up from the grain mill he had been adjusting. Around him, his 8 companions, 4 humans and 4 aliens, stopped their various activities and stared at their beacons in confusion. "What does that mean? All parameters are void?" asked Thok, the massive Grimak warrior. "It means they're changing the rules," Jimin said grimly, "and not in our favor." The first sign of trouble came from the sky. The perpetual cloud cover that had hung over the moon for the past 3 days began to change. Instead of the familiar gray-green of acidic moisture, the clouds turned dark purple, then black, then began to glow with an ominous red light. "The atmospheric composition is shifting," So Young reported, checking readings on a primitive weather monitoring device she had constructed. "Temperature is rising rapidly. Pressure is dropping. Whatever they're doing to this moon, it's not natural." Taeho emerged from the water filtration system, his face tense with concern. "The stream flow is increasing. Fast. I think we're about to get hit with massive flooding." As if his words were a signal, the ground began to shake. Not the gentle tremor of distant earthquakes, but the violent, sustained shaking of tectonic catastrophe. In the distance, they could see other alien cadets running from their shelters as the structures collapsed around them. "Earthquake and flood simultaneously," Jimin observed with professional detachment. "That's not possible under natural conditions. They're artificially inducing multiple disasters at once." "Why would they do that?" chimed one of the Vexhan. "Crystal beings." "To test our limits," Hyun-woo said quietly. "They want to see what happens when we face impossible odds." The red glow in the clouds suddenly intensified, and the temperature spiked dramatically. What had been a cool morning became blazing hot within minutes. The air itself began to shimmer with heat waves. "The crucible of extinction," whispered one of the Quillen, its voice barely audible above the rumbling ground. "I have heard stories. They say it is the test that breaks civilizations." Around their settlement, the carefully constructed systems began to show strain. The watermill's wheels spun wildly as the stream turned into a raging torrent. The garden areas started to flood as water overflowed the irrigation channels. The defensive walls cracked and shifted as the ground moved beneath them. "We need to evacuate to higher ground," Thok declared, his military training taking over. "Gather essential supplies and abandon the settlement." "No," Hyun-woo said firmly. "If we run now, we lose everything we've built. and we'll be starting over with nothing. When the next disaster hits, what do you suggest? Jimin asked. Hyunwoo looked around at the chaos developing around them. Other alien cadets were indeed abandoning their shelters and fleeing to whatever high ground they could find. It was the logical response to multiple catastrophes happening simultaneously. But humans had survived multiple catastrophes before, not by running from them but by adapting to them. We modify our systems to handle the new conditions, he decided. Emergency protocols. We've built redundancy into everything for exactly this kind of situation. The flooding will destroy our food supplies, So Young pointed out. Then we move them to higher levels, Taeho said, understanding Hyunwoo's plan. We've got elevated storage areas that should stay dry even if the main level floods. The heat will make metal tools too hot to handle, warned one of the Vex Han. Then we wrap them in cloth and work in shifts, Jimin replied. We've got enough material to insulate everything important. The earthquakes will bring down our structures, Thok said. Not if we reinforce them properly, Hyunwoo said. He picked up his original stone tool, the sharp rock that had started everything. We rebuild what breaks. We adapt what survives. We keep working. What followed was the most intense period of collaborative effort any of them had ever experienced. As disasters cascaded around them, they worked frantically to modify their settlement for the new reality. The watermill was partially disassembled and rebuilt with a more flexible mounting system that could handle the violent water flow. The workshop was moved to an elevated platform that would stay above flood level. Essential food supplies were relocated to weather-resistant storage areas. Most importantly, they worked as a team. Each species contributed their special abilities, but all of them followed human organizational principles. They communicated constantly, shared resources without hesitation, and supported each other when individual capabilities were overwhelmed. As the day progressed, the disasters intensified. The heat became so extreme that exposed skin burned within minutes. The flooding turned the entire area into a lake, with only the highest points of land remaining above water. The earthquakes became so frequent that the ground never stopped moving. Around them, other alien cadets struggled with the impossible conditions. Some had found temporary shelter in caves or on elevated rocks. Others had simply activated their emergency beacons and waited for rescue. A few were trying to help their neighbors, but most had retreated into pure survival mode. But in the human settlement, something different was happening. Despite the catastrophic conditions, they were not just surviving, they were maintaining their civilization. Water filtration is still operational, Taeho reported from his partially submerged station. We've got clean drinking water for at least another week. Food production is disrupted but not destroyed, So Young called from the elevated garden area. I've managed to save seeds from all our essential plants. We can restart cultivation once conditions stabilize. Workshop is secure, Jimin announced. All critical tools and materials are protected. We can continue construction and repair work. Defense systems are holding, Thok added. The walls are cracked but still standing. We're protected from the worst of the environmental hazards. As night fell, the disasters showed no sign of abating. If anything, They were getting worse. The red glow in the clouds had become a constant, pulsing light that turned the flooded landscape into something from a nightmare. The heat was so intense that even the water was too hot to touch safely. But inside their modified settlement, 9 beings from 5 different species sat around a carefully maintained fire, sharing cooked food and clean water. Their shelter was damaged but functional. Their tools were battered but serviceable. Their organization was strained but intact. "I do not understand," said one of the Vexhan, its crystalline form reflecting the firelight. "Other species with greater natural advantages have been forced to retreat. Why do we continue to thrive?" "Because we're not just surviving," Hyunwoo explained. "We're adapting. Every challenge makes our systems stronger. Every problem we solve teaches us how to solve bigger problems." "But surely there must be limits," one of the Quillins said nervously. "Conditions that are too extreme even for human innovation." Hyunwoo looked out at the hellish landscape beyond their walls. The moon had become a place of constant disaster, with every environmental hazard operating at maximum intensity simultaneously. It was designed to be unsurvivable. "Maybe," he admitted, "but we haven't found those limits yet." As if to challenge his words, a new disaster began. The ground started to crack open, releasing toxic gases that glowed with sickly yellow light. The air itself became poisonous, forcing them to retreat deeper into their shelter and activate emergency air filtration systems they had built for exactly this contingency. Outside, the crucible of extinction continued its relentless assault. But inside, humans and aliens worked together to face each new challenge with determination, ingenuity, and the quiet confidence that comes from having overcome the impossible before. The Academy wanted to test the limits of human adaptability. As the night wore on and the disasters intensified, those limits remained frustratingly out of reach. The rescue ships arrived at dawn on the 7th day, cutting through the toxic atmosphere of the ruined moon like silver needles threading through poison gas. From orbit, the Academy's observers had watched the crucible of extinction run its course, cataloging casualties and calculating survival statistics. The expected outcome was total cadet elimination within 48 hours. The test had been designed by studying the environmental disasters that had destroyed advanced civilizations throughout galactic history. No species should have been able to survive the combination of extreme heat, massive flooding, constant earthquakes, and toxic atmospheric contamination. But as the rescue teams deployed across the devastated surface, they made a discovery that would reshape galactic understanding of human capabilities. "Rescue Team Alpha to command," came the first. "Report. We have located survivors in Grid 7, multiple species, all alive and apparently healthy. High Evaluator." Quindara materialized her consciousness aboard the primary rescue vessel, her energy form crackling with patterns of disbelief. "How many survivors?" 9 beings, sir. 4 humans, 1 Grimac, 2 Vexhan, and 2 Quillin. They are requesting permission to finish their breakfast before evacuation." The rescue team's cameras transmitted images that stunned the Academy leadership. In the middle of the devastated moonscape, a complex settlement not only remained, standing but appeared to be thriving. Gardens grew under protective domes. Clean water flowed through elevated aqueducts. Workshops hummed with activity. And in the center of it all, 9 beings sat around a table sharing a meal as if environmental catastrophe was nothing more than mildly inconvenient weather. Instructor Veltar materialized beside Quindara, its crystalline form trembling with barely controlled emotion. Impossible. The environmental conditions alone should have killed them within hours. Yet there they are, Quindara observed, not merely alive, but comfortable. When the rescue teams landed, they found the survivors eager to explain their methods. Hyun-woo Kim, still holding the sharp rock that had started everything, gave them a tour of the settlement with obvious pride. The heat was a problem until we built the solar reflection system, he explained, pointing to carefully angled metal surfaces that directed burning sunlight away from their living areas. The flooding was manageable once we elevated everything and created proper drainage channels. The earthquakes just required flexible construction methods. And the toxic gases? Asked the rescue team leader, a 6-armed being whose species was considered naturally resistant to chemical contamination. Filtration and ventilation, Taeho said simply. We built air processing systems using layered filters and chemical absorption materials we found locally. Basic environmental engineering. The rescue team exchanged glances. These humans were discussing techniques that most species would require advanced technology to implement. They had done it with rocks, sticks, and improvised materials. What? About psychological stress? Asked the team's medical officer. The crucible is designed to break down social cooperation and reduce subjects to individual survival behaviors. Why would we do that? Jimin asked, genuinely confused. Working together makes everything easier. Individual survival is much harder than group survival. So Young nodded toward their alien companions. Thok's strength helped us move heavy materials during construction. The Vexhan processed minerals we could never have worked with ourselves. The Quillen scouted for resources and materials we would never have found alone. And what did you contribute? The medical officer asked. Organization, Hyun-woo said simply. Planning. The ability to see how different capabilities can work together to solve problems. War Captain Thok stepped forward, his massive form towering over the rescue team. The humans taught us to think beyond our individual limitations. My species has great strength, but strength without direction is wasted. The humans showed us how to use our abilities efficiently. One of the Vexhan chimed in agreement. We can reshape minerals, but we never understood how to reshape them purposefully. The humans showed us how individual actions can contribute to collective goals. Before meeting the humans, my people used our speed only for escape, added a Quillen. They showed us how speed can serve construction, communication, and cooperation. The rescue team leader was taking detailed notes. And during the crisis period, when conditions became extreme, we adapted our systems, Jimin said, matter-of-factly. Every challenge taught us something new about environmental management. By the end, we were actually more comfortable than we had been at the beginning. More comfortable? Veltar's voice cracked through the communication system. You were facing conditions that destroyed entire civilizations. Yes, but we learned. From each challenge, Hyunwoo explained. Each problem we solved made us better at solving the next problem. By the time the worst conditions hit, we were ready for them. The rescue team completed their evaluation and transmitted their findings to the Academy leadership. The results were unprecedented in Academy history. Not only had the humans survived the unsurvivable test, they had thrived during it. More significantly, they had enabled other species to survive conditions that should have overwhelmed their natural abilities. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. They want to stay, the rescue team leader reported. The humans are asking permission to continue their settlement work. They say they have more ideas for improving the environment. High Evaluator. Quindara's energy form pulsed through a rainbow of colors, each hue representing different aspects of her ancient consciousness, processing this impossible information. Bring them to the Academy, she decided. All of them. It is time for a different kind of evaluation. The graduation ceremony took place in the Academy's Great Hall, with representatives from hundreds of species in attendance. Word of the humans' performance had spread throughout the galactic community, causing intense debate about humanity's place in civilization. Hyunwoo, Jimin, Taiho, and So Young stood before the assembled crowd in their simple gray uniforms, still carrying the primitive tools they had created during their trial. Beside them stood their alien companions, equally simple in appearance, but radiating quiet confidence. High Evaluator, Quindara addressed the gathering, her ancient voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. For 300 years, this Academy has tested species for their fitness to join galactic civilization. We have evaluated natural advantages, individual capabilities, and survival instincts. Today, we recognize a new category of evolutionary achievement. Her form shifted to patterns of deep respect mixed with cautious admiration. The human species has demonstrated that the greatest natural advantage is not physical strength or energy manipulation or biological armor. The greatest advantage is the ability to see solutions where others see only problems. She gestured toward the humans. These four beings, armed with nothing more than rocks and plant fibers, accomplished what advanced civilizations thought impossible. But more importantly, they shared their methods freely, elevating other species beyond their individual limitations. Instructor Veltar stepped forward, carrying something in its crystalline hands. It was Hyunwoo's original cutting tool, the sharp rock that had started their entire adventure. This simple stone tool will be displayed in the Academy's Hall of Innovation, Veltar announced. It represents a fundamental truth that we had forgotten. Intelligence and cooperation can triumph over any challenge. The instructor looked directly at Hyunwoo. I apologize for underestimating your species. I see now that humanity's lack of obvious biological advantages forced you to develop something more valuable, the ability to create advantages as needed. The ceremony concluded with the formal induction of humanity into the galactic community. But as the crowds dispersed and the representatives returned to their homeworlds, A new understanding spread throughout the galaxy. Humans were not just another member species. They were potential teachers, showing other civilizations that every limitation could become an opportunity. Every challenge could become a stepping stone to greater achievement.